Hello, good morning and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of the Hindu News Analysis dated 13th of August 2024. Let's have a look at the topics that I'll be discussing in today's video. I've taken more than 10 topics or 10 articles from Hindu newspaper as well as Indian Express newspaper today's edition. And these articles which I've taken from Hindu newspaper are from international edition. The first set of articles continuing the discussion regarding the Hindenburg. There are 4 to 5 articles which have been provided in Hindu newspaper today, and there is a very big article under the text and context page where the whole saga of what has happened in the last 2 days has been provided. There is no point in discussing the whole thing all over again for a very simple reason. Yesterday itself we have discussed what are the allegations made by Hindenburg against the current chairperson of SEBI. So we will look at what are the important, let's say, concepts which are mentioned in different articles, and we'll understand these concepts. In addition to this, I have taken one more editorial from Indian Express newspaper, which is talking about institution and individuals. How individuals make the institutions and how institutions will influence the behavior or the performance of individuals, again surrounding the discussion regarding the regulatory authority. Second, Speedy trial, a fundamental right. An editorial is published in today's Hindu newspaper. Plus, there is also discussion regarding Supreme Court two-judge bench looking at the recent judgment of the Supreme Court to provide bail to Mr. Manish Sisodia in one more case. Third, disinformation, AI and Chakravyuh. This talks about the dangers of technology in the current situation, usage of artificial intelligence, etc., which are a security risk, which are a risk to an individual, etc. We will have a look at it. Fourth article regarding inflation. The retail inflation data is published today. The wholesale, yesterday, the data will be published today by the government, which basically means tomorrow in the newspaper you will come across WPI data as well. So according to the data which has been published yesterday regarding the retail inflation, CPI, a very important piece of information, it has fallen down to almost a 5-year low, right? What is the importance of it? Has it actually reduced or is there a concern even today? Let's try and understand. Fifth article, NCERT has conducted a survey, third round of survey regarding the functioning of Kasturba, Gandhi, Balika, Vidyalayas. What are the findings? What is the importance of it? And sixth article, again related to education in India. The National Institution for the Institutional Ranking Framework. One more round of, let's say, the ranking has been published for the year 2024. What are the important points? We'll understand. Seventh article, I've taken this from Indian Express. Yesterday in Hindu's website this was provided, but apparently in today's Delhi edition as well as international edition, there is no mention regarding this. That is the concept of UNESCO Kalinga prize. And 8th article, collision avoidance system. And finally, the 9th article, there is a very disturbing news regarding YouTuber to gain, let's say, more following. It is alleged that has killed peacock and has consumed the peacock meat. And related to that, we'll understand certain important points. So these are the set of articles that I'll be discussing today. But before that, if you are preparing for the next year civil services examination, we have an offer for you. You will be able to purchase the Unacademy's classroom program, that is the online classroom program, at a price of 1,250 rupees per month. This offer is available only till 14th of August. If you are interested, please do check out the details, and if any of your friends are looking for a quality, let's say, education program for preparation of civil services, do recommend us. Now, let me start the discussion. Before I start the discussion, just to understand the importance of these articles, please have a look at the number of articles which have been published in today's Hindu newspaper. This article, the cloud over SEBI's chief, the cloud over the chairperson or the SEBI's chief, appeared as a headline in today's Hindu newspaper, all the editions. Second article in the business page, markets remain calm despite certain allegations raised by Hindenburg report. Third article, very big article, what are the allegations as well as the clarifications given by the allegations made by Hindenburg, clarifications given by the chairperson and the spouse as well as Adani. Very big article. And the fourth one, like I said earlier, I have taken this editorial page article from Indian Express, today's edition itself. Now, what are the very important points? In a nutshell, again I am not going to discuss everything in detail regarding allegations. In a nutshell, Hindenburg published a report on Saturday. It has raised certain concerns regarding the conflict of interest that they say is faced by the current chairperson of SEBI. It has also raised a concern regarding whether SEBI, when they conducted investigations against Adani group of companies, were they partial or impartial, or they simply turned a blind eye because the chairperson of SEBI is also associated, again he is also associated with certain funds which are under investigation regarding Adani group of enterprises. So in 1 minute, in a nutshell, this is what we have discussed in the last 2 days regarding the Hindenburg report. Continuing the discussion now, there is a call from the opposition parties to set up a joint parliamentary committee. Now the joint parliamentary committee, please understand, the concept is very simple here. The joint parliamentary committees are ad hoc committees. What do you mean by ad hoc committees? Whenever you study about parliamentary committees, there are parliamentary committees which are standing committees, totally 24 of them are there. In addition to this, there are also other committees which are established, which are set up whenever there is a requirement of it. Now these ad hoc committees, that is joint parliamentary committees, generally will take up a bill, review the bill. For example, very recently, the Waqf amendment bill which has been proposed by Government of India has been referred to the joint parliamentary committee. And this is not the first time that a JPC has been set up. In the past also, in multiple instances, the JPC has been established and it has been asked to look after certain event which has created disturbance in the public domain, or look at and review a particular piece of legislation such as a bill. For example, earlier the stock market crash or the stock market scam, to review or to basically study that and to find out what happened in that particular scam, a JPC was established in the previous situation as well. Now the demand of opposition political parties is that when questions have been raised, when allegations have been made on the chairperson of SEBI, it is going to put the whole regulatory system under review. It is going to raise concerns. Investors will be concerned whether the market regulator is functioning according to the guidelines, or it is partial, it is favoring certain larger companies in the market, etc., etc. So to ensure that there is no partiality, to ensure and restore the confidence of the investors in the market, the opposition political parties are demanding a joint parliamentary committee. So far, the Government of India has not given any statement regarding the Hindenburg report. Although the spokespersons of political parties have given a statement, the government representatives, that is the bureaucrats, specifically stated that they don't have anything to add to whatever has been the clarification provided by SEBI so far. So again the argument arises, what is the issue with the government? Why is the government not establishing a joint parliamentary committee? That is a question raised by opposition political members. Now having said so, please understand certain basic points regarding joint parliamentary committee. The JPC, as already mentioned, is an ad hoc committee, will be established whenever there is a need of it. Now in case of JPC, there will be representation from both the Rajya Sabha as well as the Lok Sabha. In the previous JPCs which have been established, in certain JPCs, 20 members were there from Lok Sabha and 10 members from Rajya Sabha. In couple of JPCs, there were 10 members from Lok Sabha and 5 members from Rajya Sabha. So the speaker, or basically the presiding officers, will basically approve a motion to establish a JPC. it shall be moved, that is the motion shall be moved from one house to another house, and it is accepted in both the houses, and thereafter what is the composition of JPC, who will be the members of JPC, what will be the terms of references of JPC, all of them are decided. And remember the next point as well, whenever the JPC is formed, you will have members from the ruling party as well as members from the other political parties, that is opposition political parties as well. And whatever are the findings of the JPC, these are not binding on the government of India. These are not binding. These are generally advisory in nature, but it has been seen that generally these recommendations or observations are accepted by the government of India. So these are certain points regarding the Joint Parliamentary Committee, one concept. Second concept, there is a discussion in this text and context page regarding the concept of short selling. Please understand, essentially the short selling simply means you will sell the securities when the market price of the securities is higher, and when the market price of the security will fall, you will purchase it. But more importantly, even before you sell the security, you would have borrowed the security. Remember this. You would have borrowed the security. You have not purchased it, you have borrowed it. For example, I have taken a security from you, I have borrowed this share of a company. I will sell the share of the company today and I will get, let's say, 50 rupees in the market. Now after a couple of days, let's say the market price of the share falls down to 30 rupees. I will simply use 30 out of 50 rupees to purchase the share and give the share back to you, and in the process I have made a profit of 20 rupees. But please understand, whenever you talk about short selling, the important point is there can be two types of short selling. One is called as a covered short selling, and the second one is called as uncovered or naked short selling. Uncovered or naked short selling. In case of India, the short selling is allowed for all the types of investors, whether you are a corporate investor or that is institutional investor, or you are, let's say, a retail investor such as you and me. We can be involved in the short selling practice in the market, and short selling is allowed in the Bombay Stock Exchange as well as National Stock Exchange also. But more important point to remember, whether you are an institutional investor or a retail investor, doesn't matter, you are allowed to conduct only the covered short selling. You are not allowed to conduct uncovered short selling or naked short selling. What is the basic idea of a naked short selling? Naked short selling essentially means without borrowing the instrument, that is without physically having this kind of an instrument, you are not allowed to enter into short selling contracts. You are not allowed to enter into short selling. You should always have the underlying asset. That is basically the concept of covered as well as uncovered. Uncovered not allowed, only the covered is allowed, which essentially means I should have borrowed an instrument, only then I will be allowed to participate in the short selling market. Then that is the second very important point. The concern here is that when Adani published the report regarding the let's say the malpractices of when Hindenburg published a report regarding certain malpractices of Adani group of enterprises, they had entered into a short position. Now the concern is that, is the same entity, has it entered into a short position? That's the reason they have published the report. And now when the market will come down, and it has already been seen that although the market did not react very greatly to the publication of the report, initially when the market opened, there was some small disruption because of the report. But after that the market has gained, and many of the experts have stated the market has understood that these are simply allegations, and because these are allegations of personal nature regarding, let's say, the performance or the functioning of a chairperson of SEBI, the market has ignored these allegations, and that's the reason the market has remained normal. The kind of volatility that was seen when Adani report was published, this kind of volatility has not been seen. But moreover, another important point to note in this context is, when Adani report was published by Hindenburg last year in the month of January 2023, the market crashed. There was a bloodbath in the stock market. the shares of Adani group of companies lost a huge amount of market capitalization. This time when the report has been published regarding certain practices, or let's say the conflict of interest regarding the chairperson of SEBI, interesting to note that the market prices of again the Adani group of enterprises shares have taken a hit. There are 10 stocks of Adani enterprises. Out of 10 stocks, 8 of the stocks were in red yesterday. Red essentially means the market prices have gone down. Right? As a result of this, the market capitalization of these the 8 companies or Adani group of enterprises, which has been lost in the last day itself, is somewhere around $13 billion. $13 billion, mind you. But many experts are saying, compare this to, let's say, the event that took place last year. When the report on Adani was published, at that point of time, the total loss in market capitalization was more than $100 billion. So the impact has been limited, but it is only fair to say that report was not on Adani enterprises, but even then the Adani group of enterprises, the stocks or the market capitalization has been affected to a certain extent because of the Hindenburg report published on Saturday. That's a second very important point. Third very important point, there is one point which has been mentioned by the opposition political parties. That is, there is the concept of Rule 19A. Right? Please understand this. There is this idea of a Rule 19A. What is this Rule 19A? Rule 19A of Securities Contracts Regulation Rules of 1957. This rule was introduced back in the year 2010. The rule simply mentions that every company which is listed in the stock market at any given point of time must maintain at least 25% public shareholding. Remember this, any company which is listed in the stock market, right, at any point of time should maintain at least 25% of public shareholding. What does it actually mean? Any company that is listed in the stock market, at least 25% of the shares should be there with the public. And when we say public, we are excluding the owners of the company, the promoters of the company, their relatives. And this 25% of the share should always be in the market, which is owned by everybody else except the promoters and their immediate relatives. And this is a rule, by the way. And remember this as well. This rule doesn't apply to government owned entities. Generally, government owned entities are exempted from this, but the government tries to follow this rule by reducing its stake to less than 75% over a period of time, not immediately as it is supposed to be done in the context of other private limited companies, or let's say the companies of private sector which will get listed in the stock market. Now, couple of the students have sent a mail to me, sir, how is it possible to manipulate stock in the market? How are we able to manipulate? Why this kind of allegation is generally raised? My dear, the logic is very simple here. If the number of shares of a very popular company are very limited, let's say very limited, and let's say more than 70% of the shares of this listed company are there with the promoters and the family members, the number of shares which are there in the market compared to the 70% is very limited. Now, what if you create artificial scarcity, artificial demand for such shares? That is through, right, let's say the foreign funds, the investment funds from the foreign market, you will route this investment into India, and these investments will be used to purchase the shares which are there in the public domain of your company. So, automatically the demand for the shares will start increasing, market price will start increasing, and if I am the owner of this company, my wealth will also start increasing. Can I use these particular shares which has a very high market value now, market price now, to pledge to a bank and take a loan? That is also allowed. So, these kind of methodologies are used to rig the prices of the shares in the stock market. Done? So, these are certain very important points or the concepts which have been mentioned regarding the continuing row of Hindenburg as well as SEBI. Now, to be very clear, again I reiterate this particular point. SEBI has stated all the disclosures that was supposed to be done by the chairperson and the spouse has been done. In certain cases, there have been recusals also. But in what cases there has been a recusal? That information is yet to be provided by SEBI. And to be very precise again here, Mrs. Madhabi Buch as well as her spouse, they also have categorically stated we have not done anything wrong. Adani group of companies also has given a statement that all of the information or the allegations are fictitious in nature. There is no truth to all of these allegations. But having said so, here are certain pertinent questions which we will have to ask to SEBI. According to an article, that is editorial, that has been written by Mr. P. Vaidyanathan Iyer in today's Indian Express, certain questions have been raised, and these are important questions, by the way. Reason being, SEBI is a very important market regulator. Why did we reach a point where questions have been raised regarding whether SEBI is partial, impartial, whether SEBI is conducting the investigation correctly or incorrectly? Why did we reach this particular point in the first place? We need to introspect that. Reason being, if you remember yesterday, I told you SEBI operates, or the management of SEBI is done through a board. And in the board, this is a composition. You have the chairperson, you have a chairperson. In addition to chairperson, there are 4 plus 4, right, representatives, or let's say members, taking the total membership of SEBI board to 9 people. Please make a very important observation here. Make an observation. If you observe, you will find that there are 2 representatives of Government of India within the SEBI board. That is one, Mr. Ajay Seth, who is basically the Secretary of Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance. There is also another person, Mr. Manoj Govil or Dr. Manoj Govil, who is the Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. In addition to this, we also have one more representative from Reserve Bank of India, Mr. Rajeshwar Rao, who is basically the Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank of India. Now, this is the important question. If the chairperson of SEBI had disclosed all the information earlier, again, she says she has done all the disclosures. If the disclosures were done earlier, when initially regarding the Hindenburg report was published regarding the malpractices of Adani group of companies, when this report was sent to, let's say, the chairperson of SEBI, did she recuse herself from the beginning? That's a very important question. Did she recuse herself from the beginning? First one. Second one, when a petition was filed with the Supreme Court of India, was this information that the chairperson in 2015 had opened an account with one of the funds which is involved under the investigation by SEBI regarding the Adani case, was it disclosed to Supreme Court of India? And these 3 people, 2 from Government of India, 1 from Reserve Bank of India, did they have all the knowledge regarding to what extent the chairperson is involved in the fund which is under investigation by SEBI itself? Was that information given to them? And if that was given to them, did they communicate that to the Finance Ministry? Did they communicate that to Reserve Bank of India Governor? And if they have communicated it, why was the government not proactive when the Adani issue raised back in the year 2023? When the Adani issue came to fore through Hindenburg, when it was discussed so much, why this kind of information was not provided and proactive measures were taken to either change the SEBI chairperson or give this information to the public at that point of time itself? The concern which has been raised by the author is very simple. The people who will become the chairman or the chairperson of these regulatory authorities, they influence how the regulatory bodies work. They determine how the regulatory bodies work. And that's the reason the individuals who will basically become the chairperson, they will have to be above any kind of suspicion. They will have to be above any kind of suspicion. And if these kind of disclosures to the granular level, I repeat, to the granular level, that is to the detailed level are provided, why was it not made public at the time of the Adani issue? Why did we have to wait so much? Why did we have to come to know about this through other reports? So that is a pertinent question which has been raised by the author in the editorial which has been published in Indian Express. In addition to this, there is one more issue which has been raised. The author says Supreme Court of India had set up a 6-member expert committee back in the year March 2023. Supreme Court of India had set up a 6-member expert committee. They were supposed to look into the investigations and give a report to Supreme Court of India. Was this committee also informed regarding to what extent, right, this particular fund in Mauritius that is being investigated, what is the exposure of the chairperson to this particular fund? Was this information disclosed? And was this information, if it was disclosed to the 6-member committee, did they inform this to Supreme Court of India? Because I hope you understand, like we have discussed yesterday, Supreme Court of India mentioned Article 32 of Indian Constitution and said, if there are certain circumstances where the people who are overseeing the investigations, if we find that there is a conflict of interest, then we will think of forming a special investigation team, or we will think of transferring this to the Central Bureau of Investigation, that is CBI. So, was all of this information disclosed to Supreme Court, Government of India, the Finance Minister, right, RBI Governor? And if this was disclosed, what is the reason why we waited till Hindenburg told us that this is the situation? This is a kind of exposure the chairperson has regarding the investigation. Right, so these are certain important things related to the set of articles that have appeared in Indian Express as well as the Hindu newspaper, today's edition. Now, associated with this, I have given an MCQ assignment number 12 here. Consider the following statements. SEBI allows covered as well as uncovered short selling. Short selling is allowed only for institutional investors and not for retail investors. Short selling is allowed in BSE and NSE. 3 statements. How many of the statements are true? Do let me know. Now, related to yesterday's assignment, I gave you 2 MCQs yesterday. MCQ number 10, consider the following statements. SEBI has been set up as a constitutional authority. Absolutely no. It is a statutory authority. I told you it was established in 1988. It was actually established in 1988. Thereafter, in 1992, it was given statutory status when Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister. In fact, one of the achievements of Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao is said to be establishment of the SEBI after a scam broke out in the stock market. Second, prior to SEBI, the market regulator was Controller Capital Issuers. Absolutely correct. 1947, please go back, 1947. In the year 1947, Government of India established an authority by the name of Capital Controller of Issues, and this was established under the Act, Capital Controls Issues Act of 1947. And this particular authority was given, or it had the duty of overseeing which companies will be issuing shares in the market, which companies will be raising capital, how much, what process, etc. When SEBI was established in 1988 and given statutory status in 1992, we repealed the Capital Controls Act of 1947. So, second statement is true. Third one, SAT. SAT basically stands for Securities Appellate Tribunal. SAT is the appellate authority against orders of SEBI. Yes. Against the orders issued by SEBI, you want to appeal against it, you can approach Securities Appellate Tribunal. So, second and third are true. Right option for the question will be option B. Only 2 statements are true. MCQ assignment number 11. Consider the following statements for headline and core inflation. MPC uses the headline CPI as a nominal anchor. Yes. MPC basically stands for Monetary Policy Committee. And whenever they have to make a policy decision, what is the indicator that they use based on which they take a call to either increase, decrease or maintain the same rate? That is basically the nominal anchor, and that is the CPI, headline CPI. Second, the base year for the calculation of headline and core CPI is the same. Absolutely correct. Whether it is headline or core doesn't matter. For calculation of inflation, that is retail inflation, the base year is 2012 itself. So, right option for this question will be option C. Both are correct. Let me go forward with the next article, 2 articles. One article talks about the Supreme Court judges, a 2-judge bench which has asked a question. if they will have to take up, or if they have to basically look at the recent judgment of Supreme Court of India to give a bail to Mr. Manish Sisodia in deciding bail to one more former minister, that is Mr. V. Senthil Balaji. Second article, the editorial in Hindu newspaper, the top court as a custodian of liberties. Again, this article talks about what was the role of a Supreme Court of India, how did they arrive at a decision to provide bail to Mr. Manish Sisodia. Now, what are the important points? Listen to me very carefully. After forming the government in Delhi, the Delhi government made certain changes to its existing liquor policy. Now, the allegation is that, I am saying allegations because based on the allegations itself, the CBI as well as the Enforcement Directorate have arrested the Chief Minister, Mr. Kejriwal, as well as Mr. Manish Sisodia. Now, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal was given a bail in one of the cases that was filed by Enforcement Directorate, but in the second case, which has been filed by CBI regarding corruption, he has not been given any bail. That's the reason he is still in the jail. And on the other side, Mr. Manish Sisodia was booked under Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA. And the arrest of Mr. Manish Sisodia happened last year, in the beginning of last year, 2023. Now, obviously, when you are arrested, you will approach the trial court, you will approach the high court and seek bail, based on the charge sheet, or let's say the documents which have been provided by the investigating agency so far. But the problem arose because the investigating agencies had used provisions under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And as such, if you remember, in one of the earlier discussions that I only have taken, I talked about twin test or dual test that the courts are supposed to apply whenever a bail is supposed to be provided if the charges are under the PMLA. That is, of course, I am talking about Section 45 of Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Under the Section 45 of Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the court, that is the judge, whenever they have to provide a bail, the judge has to come to a conclusion that there is absolutely no evidence right now to say that the alleged person or the person who has been arrested under the charges, is guilty. The judge has to be very confirmed on this. There has to be a surety from the judge side. And second, the judge also has to ensure that if I give a bail to this particular person, he will not go out of the jail and commit the offence again. So, these are the twin tests. Logic is very simple. These twin tests are very, very difficult to satisfy. Very difficult to satisfy. And that is the precise reason, various points of time, many experts argue that it is almost impossible. I repeat, it is almost impossible to get a bail if the charges are filed under the PMLA. That is, if you are arrested under PMLA, very, very difficult for you to get a bail. Regarding this, we have discussed earlier, the Supreme Court of India is going to hear on 28th August regarding the twin test or the two conditions under PMLA. That is going to happen on 28th August, don't worry. But come to the case at hand here. In case of Mr. Manish Sisodia, again the PMLA provisions were used. The arrests were done in the beginning of 2023. In the month of October 2023, he approached Supreme Court of India. And the argument was, initially approached the trial court for the bail. He approached, let's say high court for the bail. Both of them rejected the petition. And they basically said, if there is a delay in your case, it is because you are filing petitions again and again. Because of that, there is a delay in starting the, let's say case in, basically concluding the arguments. And now, when he approached the Supreme Court of India in the month of October 2023, Supreme Court also asked the investigating agencies, when will the investigation be over? When the case will start, when the trial would be beginning, etc. And the investigating agencies argued that they would take somewhere around 6 to 8 months. And by the time 6 to 8 months, and this is happening in the month of October 2023, mind you, in the span of 6 to 8 months, investigation will be done and they will be filing the charge sheet by July. And after July got over, even now, they have not completed the investigation. They are simply arguing we want more time and the investigation will be concluded and we will provide the documents to the court again and again. So now Supreme Court of India looked at the argument. They said under PMLA you have a provision of a twin test. But these twin tests, they cannot be taken always and we cannot basically affect the individual liberty because of it. Because you are basically using the twin test to delay providing bail to the accused. You are ensuring that no bail is provided, which means day after day, month after month, the accused has to remain in jail. And on the other side, you are not willing to start the case as well. You are not able to finish off the investigation, provide documents and start the case as well. Looking at these two factors, Supreme Court of India, couple of days ago, hardly 4 days ago, has given bail to Mr. Manish Sisodia. Right? Is it okay? Argument of the Supreme Court judges is that the PLMA provisions cannot trump the freedom under fundamental rights. Under Article 21, right to life, these provisions cannot be used to keep a person in the jail for a very longer duration. If there are no chances, and this was told by the Supreme Court judges, that they are not seeing any end to the investigation and any time soon, they are not seeing the trial to start. So, looking at all of this, the Supreme Court has given bail to Mr. Manish Sisodia. Now, in another case, this is exactly what has been discussed in the article provided here. And the author, and again I reiterate, this is a viewpoint of the author that I am going to discuss now, because the author is a senior advocate of Supreme Court of India and is a former law minister of India, Mr. Ashwani Kumar. He says, looking at all of this, don't you think Supreme Court of India also made a mistake? This is the reason I am saying this is not my viewpoint, it is a viewpoint of the author. Did the Supreme Court of India also not make a mistake by accepting the arguments of the investigating agencies back in the year October 2023? That is, when there were so many months after the arrest, when they took so many months and after so many months they came to Supreme Court of India and stated that they will need another 6 to 8 months, don't you think that was the point of time when such arguments should have been put forward by the Supreme Court judges and a bail should have been granted? In fact, in addition to this, the justices of Supreme Court also have stated that the judges in the trial court as well as the higher court are playing very safe now. That is, whenever the accused will apply for a bail, they will cite the PMLA provision and they will reject the petition for the bail. They are playing very safe, and that's the reason there is a delay in providing bail and the accused are approaching Supreme Court of India for matters of bail. So these are certain points in this article. Now what is there in the second article here? Mr. V. Senthil Balaji is a former minister of Tamil Nadu government. He has been accused of certain scam, that is a cash for job scam. He has been arrested and the provisions of PMLA have been imposed on Mr. Senthil Balaji. Now hearing the petition, that is basically for bail, hearing the petition, the justices of Supreme Court have asked the government whether they should consider the argument which was given by the previous the judges in case of Manish Sisodia case to provide or to grant bail to Mr. V. Senthil Balaji. So that was the argument raised by the Supreme Court judges regarding the ex-minister's bail application. So these are certain important points. Please be very careful. Before I go forward, whenever there is a discussion regarding the bail, please remember there is a very important judgment of 1977. Very important judgment, and that is generally used by the Supreme Court, even the experts, to always argue in favor of bail. That is, there is a principle by the name of bail is a norm. Bail is a norm, jail is an exception. I'll repeat the statement. Bail is a norm, jail is an exception. And that basically is associated with the case of a state of Rajasthan versus Balchand alias Balia. Under this case, the Supreme Court of India made a remark. Made in the judgment, a statement was provided. Bail should generally be granted unless there are compelling reasons to deny it. such as the risk of accused fleeing, obstructing justice or intimidating witnesses. Unless these are established, unless there is a guaranteed outcome of this, the bail should be provided, and that's the reason they'll simply call this as a principle where bail is a norm and jail is an exception. Please remember the name of the judgment. If at all a descriptive question is asked regarding bail system in India, you can use it. Next article, Disinformation, AI and Cyber Chakravyuh. The article is written by M.K. Narayanan. He is a former director of Intelligence Bureau. Now, what are the arguments which have been provided in the article? Let me give you certain examples before that. In recent times, using technology, it could be, let's say, a video, it could be an audio clip, it could be, right, let's say even a tweet or a writing, etc. Lot of misinformation or disinformation keeps on getting, right, circulated in the economy or circulated in the society. It is not just a feature of India, this is also a feature in the Western market as well. In fact, the availability of technology, that is availability of AI tools, is said to be made all of this very much easier and is the contributor of it. For example, very recently, in the month of, let's say in the month of November in USA, presidential elections are scheduled. Very recently, one of the very influential person who has a huge number of followers, Mr. Elon Musk, basically took up a video which was posted as a parody by someone else, and this particular video was posted by him in his platform X. And the problem with that was a fake video. It was not an original video, it was a fake video where let's say the competitor now or the presidential election nominee, Miss Kamala Harris, is said to be making certain statements which are not attributed to her. False statements. So the video was manipulated in such a way that it will look very genuine, very original, and that was pasted by someone on Twitter or X as a parody. So Mr. Elon Musk simply took it and pasted on his profile or basically pasted in his channel, which basically spread like wildfire, raising concerns regarding the usage of deep fake videos or usage of AI technology, where this kind of a disinformation can be spread very, very easily, and that can basically destabilize, raise certain doubts regarding candidates, raise national security issues, and the technology which can be used, right, for harming individuals as well. And this is not the only incident. It is not the only incident. There have been multiple examples where AI, right, or other forms of technology, generative AI, has been misused by certain groups over a period of time, which is not good for the society, not good for individuals, as well as not at all good for national security. For example, there is an observation that has been done, multiple surveys which have been conducted, where terrorist groups, mind you, terrorist groups are using AI technology, generative AI technologies to create videos, to create a false narrative, misinform, disinform, right, the people, and recruit a lot of people and also raise a lot of funds. Don't you think that's a national security issue? If terrorists will start recruiting people by using these fake videos, it is a very important national security threat then. What about, right, what about the recent example of pig butchering? I don't know how many of you have heard of this. There is a new system or a new problem called as a pig butchering. And before you jump to a conclusion, sir, why are you talking about non-veg here? Right, we don't eat pig, etc. Don't talk about this. My dear, pig butchering doesn't have anything to do with the meat consumption. Pig butchering is a new type of a tool which is being used, a process which is being used, where people will approach you online, by the way. People will approach you, they will instill confidence in you. They will treat you as if they have your welfare in their mind, and they will ask you to invest in one more account. They will ask you to invest. They will not ask you to give money. They will ask you to invest in, let's say, a stock market or a bond market. There will be app for this. You will believe them because obviously they will talk to you very sweetly. They will inquire about your health. They will talk about your studies, etc., etc. And all of us crave this kind of attention. So once we fall into this particular trap, we will invest according to the direction, will be given the illusion that we control investment, but one fine day all of that investment will be taken away by the scammers. That process is called as pig butchering. And again, this is a new type of a scam that has arisen in the Western markets. Even in India, this is happening now. Especially in case of crypto markets, pig butchering is becoming very, very famous. So the argument in this article is very simple. The use of technology can be used for the betterment of the mankind, for providing welfare for the people. But over a period of time, what has happened is, with the new type of technologies arising, such as a generative AI, it has become almost very difficult now. It is becoming impossible for the governments to take care of the national security threats, for individuals to protect themselves from being abused or let's say cheated by someone using these kind of technologies. Certain examples have been provided. For example, ransomware attacks are let's say created, where ransom has to be paid only and only then your computers will be unlocked. Or for that matter, let's say the Stuxnet, the computer malware or computer virus that was used to attack Iranian nuclear program. Or for that matter, if you want to understand what could be the impact if these kind of technologies will fall into the wrong hands of the people, just understand what happened regarding the CrowdStrike, which affected millions of the technological tools, or let's say the mobile phones, or not the mobile phones, the computers and the laptops which used the Microsoft let's say software very, very recently. According to one estimate, the top 500 Fortune 500 companies have lost somewhere around $44 million. $44 million. I hope you understand, that's not a small amount. Right, so 44 million per company of 500 companies has been lost because of just a glitch in the update of the Microsoft software, right, that is basically called by the name of CrowdStrike. That CrowdStrike concept has been discussed in the earlier videos. That's the reason I'm not entering into all of it. But the argument is very simple here. Using the technology, you can disrupt the whole economic system. It could be banking, it could be financial market, it could be air traveling, etc. That is exactly what happened in case of CrowdStrike. Luckily, this was not a terrorist strike. I hope you understand. It was simply a glitch in the system. It was not a terrorist strike. Imagine if this kind of a technology is used by the terrorist to cripple a particular economy, rather than having a direct attack such as let's say using bombs or taking planes and hitting certain infrastructure, etc. Instead of that, what if these kind of cyber attacks are conducted by the extremist or let's say the terrorist? The impact will be much, much bigger, and it will cripple the whole economy as well as the society for a very longer duration. In fact, the misuse of this kind of technology is very much prevalent in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Various experts have agreed that there is a lot of disinformation that has been used by Ukraine as well as Russia, especially by Russia, to wage a war against Ukraine. And this author basically says the disinformation or the cyber attacks which have been conducted in this war can be a case study in themselves. It can be used as a case study. Right? So the overall argument which has been provided by the expert here is very simple. The governments will have to be proactive now. We will have to ensure, even as individuals, we will have to ensure that the technology will not be abused and we will not be manipulated and cheated out of our hard earned money. There have to be certain changes in the provisions, and we need to have international assistance, that is assistance amongst all the countries, in order to overcome the challenges of abusing artificial intelligence as well as cyber information. And so this is in a nutshell what has been provided in the article. Let me go to the next article. Statistical effects pulled inflation to 59-month low of 3.5% for the month of July. What is the importance of this article? Please understand this. For the first time, after many months, for the first time, inflation rate, that is again retail inflation rate has come down below 4%. In fact, if you look at the data, I have given certain data here. After 2019, for the first time, the retail inflation has come below 4%. 4% is important because under the Monetary Policy Framework Agreement or inflation targeting, RBI has given the target of 4% for retail inflation. So, for the first time, it has come down below 4%. Should we be happy? Should we be jubilant regarding this? Many experts are arguing, don't be too happy. Although for policy making, it's a good outcome, do not be too happy. Why? The reduction in the inflation rate to 3.5% for the month of July is on account of base effect. Understand this very carefully. It is on account of base effect. In fact, if you look at what has happened to the price levels compared to the month of June, I repeat, if you look at what has happened to the price levels compared to the month of June, in the month of July, price levels have actually increased. You and me, we are paying more for basket of goods under CPI compared to June. Then how come the inflation rate is lower? How come it is less than 4%? My dear, it is because whenever you talk about July inflation rate of 2024, we will compare that with what was the price level for the month of July 2023. Simply exactly 1 year before or 1 year prior. And because the price levels in the month of July 2023 were very high, I hope you understand, price levels were very high. Because of that, when you compare this with the July 2024 prices, it will feel like price levels have come down. Is it okay? It will feel like price levels have come down. And this is the primary reason why the CPI data for July is 3.5% less than 4%. In addition to this, urban inflation is 3%, right? Rural inflation is 4.1% compared to previous months. Again, both urban and rural has come down. But if you make a clear observation, you will realize that rural inflation is greater than urban inflation. Rural inflation is higher compared to urban inflation. And if you are wondering, sir, what is the importance of this piece of information? How should I understand it? Reason is very simple. The food and beverages, the weightage for rural India is higher compared to urban. And if higher inflation is observed in case of rural inflation, which houses majority of the population, don't you think it will have an adverse impact on consumption patterns, saving patterns of rural part of India? In addition to this, food inflation is 5.9% in case of a rural market. You can understand this, 4.6% in case of urban market. Okay, so this is also the first time in the last 9 months where food inflation has actually fallen down below 8%. This is somewhat a relief, again purely looking at the inflation data. But if you look at the month on month, if you look at the June month and July month, we have not got any kind of a relief here. The price levels have increased, but just because we always measure it year on year, it will look like the inflation rate has come down. Done? So this is the important information. If you ask me, sir, should I memorize this data? Please do not memorize the data because the every month the number will keep on changing. But you can remember the concept of a base effect. That can be asked in the preliminary examination. Now, based on this, I have given an MCQ assignment, that is number 13 now. What are the statements? Which of the following are the factors behind a divergence between CPI and a WPI? I have given 4 factors here. Which of these factors, or let's say how many of these factors, right? How many of these factors, it has to be how many? How many of these below factors are contributing to a divergence between CPI and WPI? Only one factor, 2 or 3 or 4 factor. What is the right option? Please do let me know in the comment section. If you are not able to solve it, please do join my next session whenever I take. I will discuss the answers for the previous as well as that is the 12th and 13th assignment question. Next article, I will discuss 2 articles, both of them are related to education in India. First one, NCERT finds several shortfalls in the functioning of Kasturba, Gandhi, Balika, Vidyalaya. I will start using the short form of this, Kasturba, Gandhi, Balika, Vidyalaya, KGBV. Now, what is this KGBV? Please understand, there are certain educationally backward regions in India, educationally backward areas. And when you look at these educationally backward areas, especially the women or girl children, not women, girl children, who want to get access to education, they will not be able to get the access, because in this area the schools are very far away. Schools are very far away, and there is a security threat, security concern for these girl children to get access, traveling such a far distance to get access to education. To address this problem, specifically targeting scheduled caste children, scheduled tribe, the OBCs, the other minorities, etc., Government of India has introduced a model of the KGBV, Kasturba, Gandhi, Balika, Vidyalayas. Again, right, Balika means obviously girl children, only for girl children. Under this, around 5,000 schools or KGBVs have been established. Now, there are two models within this. One is basically more than 2,700. More than 2,700 KGBVs are hostels plus schools. Is it okay? These are hostels plus schools, and remaining 2,300 are simply stand-alone hostels. These are stand-alone hostels. Right? This is a basic information. Now, this is the third survey which has been conducted by NCERT evaluating what is the performance of KGBVs. And the NCERT survey says that there is a lack of infrastructure in the KGBVs, lack of infrastructure, lack of transparency regarding how the funds are utilized to develop, maintain KGBVs. There is a lack of manpower as well. Manpower in the sense, the teachers who are there in the KGBVs, either those teachers are not residing in the KGBVs, though there is a facility for residence. Lot of them reside for a very long distance, after a certain distance, and they keep on coming to the schools. That's the first one. Second one, the teachers who are there, these teachers generally do not stay in the KGBVs for a longer duration. In fact, the survey says very small percentage of the teachers, very small percentage, that is hardly around 3% of the teachers that were covered under survey have an experience of more than 15 years within the KGBVs. And more than 40% of the teachers who are covered under the survey are working in the KGBVs for less than 2 to 3 years, which essentially means retention is a problem. Retention of the teachers is a problem. And when you keep on losing teachers like this, the effectiveness of the studies, or let's say education, will also be impacted. In addition to this, some of the KGBVs which have been approved, these are not yet functional, these are non-functional as of now. Reason is land acquisition has become a problem. The funds allocation, utilization is not very transparent. So, some of them are not functional. Third problem which has been cited in this report is, some of these KGBVs, as already mentioned, there is a hostel plus a school, and some of these KGBVs are simply standalone hostels. Many of the parents have stated that they want all these KGBVs to have educational facility. That is, there should be a hostel plus there should be a school which will provide education, generally from the 6th standard to the 12th standard, to the girl children who are covered under the KGBVs. But the report which has been published by NCERT says we should not do this. We do not support having a school within the concept of KGBVs itself. Reason which has been provided by them is, these girl children who are covered under the KGBV, let's say they are staying in the hostel, they should be enrolled. It should be seen that they should be enrolled into the schools which are there in the surrounding area. They should be enrolled into the other surrounding area schools, so that they will experience, they will get integrated into the normal education system, rather than simply bifurcating them into KGBV students. Right. So, these are certain very important points which have been mentioned by the NCERT in the third survey that they have conducted on functioning of KGBVs. Now, next article, again associated with education system in India. IIT Madras retains the top spot in NIRF ranking. What is NIRF? National Institution Ranking Framework, NIRF. Now, please understand, the concept of NIRF was started back in the year 2014, where there was a lot of discussion within the Ministry of Education regarding having a framework which will be using certain parameters and ranking the institutions across multiple spectrums, right? Let's say engineering institutions, research institutions, medical institutions, etc., etc. The reason was there are so many educational institutions in India. If a student wants to get enrolled into one of them, there is a lot of confusion created. For example, I am pretty sure all of you, when you wanted to, let's say, start with your graduation, you were having a doubt, what should be the best college for me to pursue my engineering graduation. Some of you who are doctors, you will be having a lot of confusion as to which is the best institution for getting a MBBS degree, etc. So there is always a lot of confusion because we do not have a framework which will rank all these institutions. So to address that particular lacunae, 2014 the initiation happened and a committee was also set up, and based on the recommendations and based on various considerations, 2016 we introduced the concept of NIRF. We introduced the idea of a NIRF, and thereafter we have been publishing, right? We have been publishing reports, right, which will rank the institutions under different categories. The last year's NIRF, which was published, it provided rankings for 13 categories. Now NIRF 2024 has increased the coverage to 16 categories, and under these 16 categories or different types of, let's say, the schools or the colleges or the institutions, the ranking has been provided. Now the ranking provided is here in the table. Should you memorize this? I would simply say don't do that, it's a waste of your time. But what is another important point associated with NIRF is that there are different parameters which are considered, and based on the performance of each of these institutions under these parameters, ranking is provided. Totally 5 parameters. First one is teaching, learning and resources. Second one is research and professional practice. Third one is graduation outcome. Fourth one is outreach and inclusivity, and the fifth one is perception. These are the 5 parameters, and these 5 parameters are given a weightage of 30%, 20%, 30%, 30%, 20%, 10% and 10% respectively. 30, 30, 20, 10 and 10 respectively. So based on the performance, the rankings are published. So all of this article which you will see from this column to this column, it's only regarding which institution is ranked top, second, third in this category, that category. Please do not memorize it. It is of no use for civil services. Now next article, as mentioned earlier, I went through one article yesterday in Hindu website that talked about UNESCO Kalinga prize. But surprisingly today I did not find this article in the international edition or let's say Delhi edition. But this was mentioned in the Indian Express, so I thought of discussing this, and this is again associated with what I discussed yesterday. Yesterday's Hindu newspaper analysis, I took one article that was an editorial article in the central page Hindu newspaper which talked about providing cash prizes under the different, let's say, the prizes which are announced, awards announced by Government of India under scientific community. If you remember the discussion, I said compared to earlier situation where more than 300 awards were given, now Government of India last year 2022 in fact has restructured it. Currently, according to the Government of India initiative of Vignan Puraskar, 56 prizes are announced. But more importantly, the point was no cash prizes are announced under the Vignan Puraskar. That was the crux of the discussion yesterday. Continuing the same discussion, listen to me very carefully. Back in the year 1951, when Mr. Biju Patnaik was the chief minister, through a fund, through a trust fund, right, basically through a trust fund, the award was instituted by the name of UNESCO Kalinga Prize. UNESCO Kalinga Prize for popularization of science, and this was started back in the year 1951, and from 1952 the award has been given. Under this, multiple, right, over a period of time in multiple years, awards were given to, let's say, the scientists who are involved in popularizing the sciences. Upon completion of 50 years, that is back in the year 2002, when Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, it was decided that the Department of Sciences, that is basically Government of India, So Government of India and the state government of Odisha and the trust, right, that is mentioned here, the trust, all of them will be contributing and money will be given under the UNESCO Kalinga prize, and the cash prize for this is basically $40,000. The cash prize is basically $40,000. In addition to this, the winner of this prize will also receive Kalinga chair, which is established by the Department of Science, where the prize will carry the cost, or let's say the cash reward of $5,000. Now, what is the important point here? With the restructuring of all the other prizes or all the other awards that was conducted by Government of India very recently, the Department of Science also has announced that they will discontinue providing the cash award under the UNESCO Kalinga prize. I'll repeat it, just understand this. Like I said yesterday and again today some time ago, Government of India has revamped the whole structure of providing the awards or the prizes to the scientific community. And within that particular restructuring, they have even covered UNESCO Kalinga prize, and the government now says henceforth they will not be contributing. Henceforth they will not be contributing for this UNESCO Kalinga prize. And against this, the former Chief Minister, Mr. Naveen Patnaik, has written a letter to the Government of India requesting them, please do not discontinue this. It is very closely associated with the culture of Odisha. It's a pride of Odisha. We will provide our contribution. So the Department of Science should not discontinue. They should also continue to provide their contribution. So this is basically the gist of the article which has been provided regarding UNESCO Kalinga prize. Be very, very careful. Next, the collision avoidance system. Right. So earlier also a lot of discussion has been happening, right, generally also and in the newspaper analysis also regarding anti-collision system in India, specifically targeting railways. There is a very big article which has been provided in Hindu newspaper today, which talks about collision avoidance system, CAS. Now there are different types of CAS which has been discussed in the article. Let me give you the arguments, or let's say the points which have been provided. In case of the road transportation, cars are very important mode of transportation. So in case of cars, we have introduced the concept of ADAS or ADAS. If you have purchased a car, if your family has a car, or if you have read regarding the cars, very recent cars, especially in case of India, certain cars of Hyundai, right, or even certain cars of Mahindra, certain cars of Tata carry a feature called as ADAS, which is Advanced Driving Assistance System. What is this ADAS system? Basically, under this system, if two cars are traveling, or let's say your car is traveling and has an ADAS system, through various technology, it will be able to analyze and find out if there is any obstruction ahead of you. And if there is any obstruction ahead of you, automatically it will basically, right, put on the brakes. It will apply the brakes so that the vehicle will slow down. So this is one type of a technology which is collision avoidance system in case of cars. What about trains? In case of trains, there is a Kavach system, right, anti-collision devices, basically Kavach system which has been discussed multiple times in the last 6 months because of multiple train accidents. The article simply says, under the Kavach system, multiple pieces of technology are used, computers are used, sensors are used to basically estimate and keep on providing information to all the trains or the locomotives wherein the Kavach system is installed. And when this information of, let's say, the vehicle which is coming from the opposite side, that is a train which is coming from the opposite side, or train coming from the behind, all of this information will be relayed to these locomotives. As a result of this, we will be able to avoid the train collisions. That is the second type of information that has been discussed in the article. Third one, in case of aircrafts. And in recent times, I hope you have come across these newspaper articles where there have been, let's say, aircraft accidents, where aeroplanes have incurred, many people have died because of the crash of aeroplanes. Now, in case of aircrafts, the technology that is used is basically called as a transponder system. What the transponder system does is, it will basically, right, talk to the other transponders, that is Right? Information is relayed from one transponder to other transponders of all the aeroplanes which are there in the air, and by collecting the information, it will be able to create a map which will basically showcase to you which are the nearby aeroplanes, which are the aeroplanes in your vicinity. And this kind of a technology can be used to basically prevent collisions mid-air by the aeroplanes. So these are some of the types of technologies which are mentioned here. Please go through this. Right, the next article, Peacock curry recipe lands YouTuber from Telangana in a soup. In one more event where YouTubers want to gain fame, want to become famous and want to gain lot of popularity as well as the subscription base, here is a YouTuber who has published a video on YouTube. In this video, he says he has killed a peacock and he has prepared a curry and he is going to eat it. Now, this is not important. UPSC will not ask you what is the ingredients used by the YouTuber. Don't worry. Right, a recipe will not be asked by UPSC. But what will be asked by UPSC is regarding the status of peacock. Regarding the status of peacock. Peacock is India's national bird since 1963. It enjoys a protected status. Remember this, it enjoys a protected status under Schedule 1 of India's Wildlife Act of 1972. If anybody is found to be killing a peacock, if you are alleged in killing a peacock and it is proven, then you will be imprisoned. You will be sent to jail. Killing is strictly prohibited, and per section 51 of the Protection Act, it will attract imprisonment which can go up to 7 years, and also there is a fine, monetary penalties which will not be less than 10,000 rupees. So this is the protection that is provided to the national bird of India, that's a peacock. And now this YouTuber will be charged under all of these provisions, and investigation will be conducted and case will be filed. So this is the importance of this newspaper article which has appeared in international as well as the Delhi edition of Hindu. So all these are the important articles as well as the issues, concepts related to the articles which have appeared in Hindu newspaper as well as Indian Express newspaper today's edition. Our objective in conducting these initiatives as well as other initiatives is to ensure that this channel will become a one-stop destination for all of your current affairs requirements. So if you like these initiatives, do hit the like button and do not forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you. Have a great day.